The red sun was setting over New Terra when the alien ships arrived. Daeho Kim watched from his workstation as the massive dark shapes blocked out the stars. His hands stopped moving over the terraforming controls. Everyone in the colony knew what those ships meant. The Catherians had come to collect. All colonists report to the main hall immediately. Sora Park's voice echoed through the settlement speakers. As colony administrator, she tried to sound calm, but Daeho could hear the fear in her voice. He had known Sora for 3 years, ever since he arrived on New Terra. She was tough, but even tough people got scared when dragon ships appeared in the sky. Daeho shut down his equipment and walked toward the main hall. Other colonists moved in the same direction, their faces pale and worried. Children clung to their parents. Old people moved slowly, their eyes fixed on the ground. Everyone knew the stories about what happened when the Catherians came to collect debts. The main hall was packed with all 400 colonists of New Terra. Sora stood on the small stage at the front, her black hair tied back, her face serious. Behind her, a large screen showed the alien ships hovering in the sky above them. "The Catherian fleet commander has sent us a message," Sora said. Her voice carried clearly through the silent hall. "Our colony is 6 months behind on resource payments. We owe them 3,000 tons of refined metals and rare earth elements." An old farmer named Bong Su raised his hand. "How much do we have?" 800 tons, Sora replied. "The mining equipment broke down twice this year. The storms damaged our processing plants. We simply don't have what they want." Worried voices filled the hall. Everyone knew the Catherian Empire ruled over 50 worlds with fear. When colonies couldn't pay their debts, the Catherians sent their dragons. The dragons burned entire cities to ash. They ate thousands of people. They turned green worlds into dead rocks. A young woman named Hei-Wan stood up. "What do they want from us? There must be something we can do." Sora's face grew even more serious. "They want a different kind of payment this time. The commander says our colony must provide 2 humans as tribute. These humans will be taken to the dragon world and—" She paused, unable to finish the sentence. "Fed to the dragons," said a voice from the back. It was Jinwoo Lee, barely 20 years old, with angry eyes and clenched fists. "They want to feed us to their monsters." The hall erupted in scared voices. Parents pulled their children closer. Some people started crying. Others looked angry, but there was nowhere to run. The Catherian ships had weapons that could destroy their entire settlement in seconds. Daeho stood up. At 32, he was taller than most of the other colonists. His military training from Earth showed in the way he carried himself, straight and calm even in danger. "I'll go," he said loudly. The hall went quiet. Everyone turned to look at him. Daeho. "No." Sora said quickly. "We can find another way. We can negotiate with them." "There is no other way," Daeho replied calmly. "I've studied the Catherians for years. They don't negotiate when they want tribute. They take what they want, or they send the dragons to destroy everything." An older man named Sung Ho shook his head. "You can't sacrifice yourself for us. You're our best engineer. Without you, this colony will fail anyway." "The colony will definitely fail if the dragons come," Daeho said. "At least this way everyone else lives. Besides, I'm not planning to die easily." Jinwoo stepped forward. "If you're going, I'm going with you. They want 2 people, right? I won't let you face those monsters alone." "Jinwoo, you're just a kid," Daeho said. "I'm 20 years old and I can shoot better than anyone here," Jinwoo replied. "My parents died when the Catherians first conquered our world. I've been wanting to fight back ever since." Sora looked desperate. "There has to be another choice. Maybe we can contact Earth, ask for help." "Earth is 12 light years away," Daeho said gently. "Even if they sent a rescue fleet today, it would take months to get here. The Catherians won't wait that long." Before anyone could argue further, the lights in the hall dimmed. A deep alien voice spoke through the settlement's communication system. The words were translated by the computer, but the cold, threatening tone came through clearly. "Humans of New Terra. I am Commander Veltar of the Catherian Third Fleet. Your debt to the Empire is clear. You will provide 2 adult humans as tribute within 1 hour, or we will release the dragons on your settlement. Choose quickly. The transmission ended, leaving the hall in terrified silence. Daeho walked to the front of the hall and faced the crowd. I know you're all scared. I'm scared too. But fear won't save us. Action will. He looked around at the faces watching him. I've been a soldier and an engineer. I've studied alien biology and military tactics. If anyone has a chance of surviving what's coming, it's me. What about me? Jinwoo asked, joining him at the front. Daeho studied the young man's face. Jinwoo was small but quick, with intelligent eyes and steady hands. More importantly, he had the kind of anger that could keep a person alive when everything looked hopeless. All right, Daeho said. We go together. Sora grabbed Daeho's arm. This is insane. You're talking about going to the Dragon World. No one survives that place. The Catherians use it as an execution ground. Maybe, Daeho said. But I've been reading about dragons since I was a child. I know how they hunt, how they think, how they move. They're big and strong and dangerous, but they're not invincible. Everything that lives can die. An hour later, Daeho and Jinwoo stood in the settlement's landing area. They each carried a small bag with basic supplies: water, food, simple, tools, and medical supplies. Daeho also carried a small device that looked like a tablet computer. It contained everything he had learned about dragon biology and behavior. The Catherian transport ship landed with a heavy thud. It was black and ugly, shaped like a giant insect. The door opened with a hiss, and 3 alien soldiers stepped out. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their faces looked like crosses between lizards and spiders. Commander Veltar was the tallest of the 3. His voice was cold and mechanical through his translator device. You are the tribute? We are, Daeho said calmly. Veltar looked surprised. Most humans begged and cried when they were taken. These 2 stood straight and looked him in the eye. Interesting, the commander said. Most humans show more fear. We're scared, Jinwoo said honestly. But we're not going to waste time crying about it. The other colonists watched from a distance as Daeho and Jinwoo were led onto the alien ship. Sora had tears in her eyes, but she didn't try to stop them. She knew this was their only chance. As the ship's door closed, Daeho looked through the small window at New Terra. The settlement looked small and fragile under the alien ships, but it was home to 400 people who deserved to live. The ship lifted off smoothly. Within minutes, they were in space, heading toward the Catherian fleet. Through the window, Daeho could see the massive battleships waiting in orbit. Each one was 10 times larger than any human vessel. Where are they taking us? Jinwoo asked quietly. Daeho checked his tablet device. Drakmor Prime, the dragon homeworld. It's a planet covered in volcanic craters where they keep their war beasts. How do you know so much about it? I've been preparing for this possibility ever since I arrived on New Terra, Daeho said. I always knew the Catherians might come for tribute someday. I wanted to be ready. Jinwoo stared at him. You've been planning to get thrown to dragons? I've been planning to survive getting thrown to dragons, Daeho corrected. There's a difference. The transport ship docked with one of the larger vessels. Commander Veltar led them through metal corridors filled with alien soldiers. The Catherians looked at the 2 humans with interest and amusement. To them, Daeho and Jinwoo were just food for their pets. They were locked in a small cell with metal walls and no windows. The only light came from a dim strip in the ceiling. The only furniture was 2 metal benches. How long until we reach the Dragon World? Jinwoo asked. 3 days, Daeho said, settling down on one of the benches. That gives us time to prepare. Prepare for what? We're going to be dragon food. Daeho smiled grimly. Jinwoo, do you know what humans are? What do you mean? I mean, what are we really? What makes us different from every other species in the galaxy? Jinwoo thought about it. We're smaller than most aliens, weaker. We don't have claws or armor or poison. Exactly, Daeho said. We're not the biggest or the strongest or the most dangerous looking, but we're still here. We survived everything Earth could throw at us: ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, wars, asteroid impacts. We climbed to the top of the food chain on a world full of things trying to kill us. So? So we did it by being smarter than everything else, by adapting faster, by turning our weaknesses into strengths. Deho pulled out his tablet and began reviewing dragon anatomy files. The Catherians think they're throwing us to monsters, but they're really throwing us to big dumb animals that have been trained to be weapons. You think we can actually fight dragons? I think we can do something the dragons won't expect, Deho said. We can think. Outside their cell, the Catherian fleet continued its journey toward Drakmor Prime, carrying 2 humans who refused to accept their fate as victims. 3 days later, Deho felt the ship shudder as it entered Drakmor Prime's atmosphere. Through the small window in their cell, he could see a world of red rock and black smoke. Volcanoes rose like jagged teeth from the surface. Rivers of lava glowed orange in the darkness. "It looks like hell," Jinwoo whispered, pressing his face against the window. "It's designed to look scary," Deho said calmly. "The Catherians want their enemies to feel hopeless before they even land." The transport ship landed with a heavy thud. Commander Veltar opened their cell door, flanked by 4 armed guards. His spider-like face showed something that might have been amusement. "Welcome to your execution, humans," he said through his translator. "Try to make it entertaining for our viewers." They were marched through the ship and down a metal ramp onto the planet's surface. The air was hot and thick, filled with the smell of sulfur and burning rock. In the distance, Deho could see massive shapes moving between the volcanic peaks. Dragons. The landing area was built on a cliff overlooking an enormous crater. The crater was at least 10 miles wide, with steep walls that dropped down into darkness. Steam rose from vents in the rock walls. At the bottom, Deho could see caves and passages carved into the stone. "The nest," Commander Veltar announced. "Home to 47 Drakmori warbeasts. They have not been fed in 3 days. They will be very hungry." Above them, floating in the sky, were several Catherian observation platforms. Deho could see aliens watching through viewing screens, waiting for the show to begin. To them, this was entertainment. "Any last words?" Veltar asked. Deho looked at the commander calmly. "Just one question. How many humans have you thrown to these dragons?" "Over the years? Perhaps 200. "And how many survived?" Veltar made a sound that might have been laughter. "None, of course. The longest survival time was 6 hours. A female from the mining world of Kepler 7. She hid in the caves until the dragons found her." "Interesting," Deho said. "What was her name? Why does it matter? She is dead." "Just curious." Veltar checked his datapad. "Hyejin Choi, a useless mining engineer who thought she could outsmart dragons by hiding." He gestured toward the crater. "Step to the edge, humans." Deho and Jinwoo walked to the cliff edge. The drop was at least 300 feet straight down. At the bottom, Deho could see movement in the shadows, big shapes shifting between the rocks. "Jump, or we push you," Veltar ordered. Deho looked at Jinwoo. The young man was pale but determined. "Ready?" "Ready," Jinwoo replied. They jumped together. The fall took almost 10 seconds. Deho used the time to study the crater walls, looking for handholds, cave entrances, and places where the rock looked weak. Jinwoo stayed close beside him, following Deho's example. They hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. Deho felt pain shoot through his left shoulder, but nothing was broken. Jinwoo landed badly and cried out, clutching his ankle. "Can you walk?" Deho asked quickly. "I think so," Jinwoo said, testing his weight on the injured foot. "It hurts, but it's not broken." That was when they heard the roar. It was a sound like thunder mixed with the screaming of metal. It echoed off the crater walls and seemed to come from everywhere at once. Both humans looked around frantically, trying to locate the source. The first dragon emerged from a cave about 50 yards away. It was bigger than Deho had expected. Much bigger. The creature stood 20 feet tall, at the shoulder, with a body that stretched nearly 60 feet from nose to tail. Its scales were dark red, almost black, and looked thick as armor plates. Its head was enormous, filled with teeth as long as swords. Its eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. "Stay calm," Daeho whispered to Jinwoo. "Don't run. Watch what it does." The dragon approached slowly, its massive head swinging back and forth as it studied the two small creatures that had just dropped into its territory. It made a rumbling sound deep in its throat. "Why isn't it attacking?" Jinwoo whispered. "It's curious," Daeho replied, never taking his eyes off the beast. "We're something new. It wants to understand what we are before it decides how to kill us." The dragon took another step closer. Its breath came out in visible puffs of superheated air. Where the breath touched the ground, small rocks began to glow red-hot. Daeho studied the creature's movements carefully. Despite its size, it moved, with grace and control. Its muscles rippled under its scales. But there was something else. Something in the way it held its head, the way it approached them. "It's been trained," Daeho realized. "What?" "Look at how it moves. This isn't wild behavior. Someone has taught it to hunt specific ways, to kill in certain patterns." Daeho's mind raced. The Kitherians have been breeding and training these dragons for centuries. They've turned them into weapons, but that also means they've made them predictable. The dragon opened its mouth, revealing rows of massive teeth. Deep in its throat, Daeho could see a glow building. Fire was coming. "Move!" Daeho shouted. They dove in opposite directions just as a stream of white-hot flame erupted from the dragon's mouth. The fire hit the spot where they had been standing and turned the rock to melted glass. The dragon swung its head toward Jinwoo, preparing another blast of fire. But Daeho was already moving. He grabbed a sharp piece of volcanic rock and hurled it at the dragon's eye. The rock bounced harmlessly off the dragon's thick scales, but it served its purpose. The creature turned its attention back to Daeho, giving Jinwoo time to scramble. "Behind a large boulder, over here, you overgrown lizard," Daeho shouted, backing toward the crater wall. The dragon charged, its massive feet shaking the ground with each step. But instead of running away, Daeho did something unexpected. He ran toward the charging beast. At the last second, he dove to the side, rolling under the dragon's belly as it thundered past. The creature's momentum carried it forward, and it crashed headfirst into the rock wall. The impact stunned the dragon for a moment. Daeho used that moment to study its underside, looking for weak spots. The scales on its belly were smaller and thinner than the ones on its back and sides. "Jinwoo," he shouted. "The soft spots are on the belly and the joints where the legs. Meet the body." The dragon shook its head, clearing the confusion from the impact. It turned around more carefully this time, having learned that these small creatures were not as helpless as they looked. Before it could attack again, a voice called out from somewhere in the rocks. "This way, quickly." A figure emerged from a hidden cave entrance, a young woman with long black hair and clothes made from dragon hide. She waved frantically at them. "Heejin Choi?" Daeho called out. The woman looked shocked. "How do you know my name?" "The Kitherians told us you were dead." "I should be dead," she replied. "But I've been hiding in these caves for 8 months. Now move before more dragons smell your blood." The first dragon was preparing to charge again, but now 2 more had emerged from other caves. They were smaller than the first one, but still deadly. Their eyes glowed as they surrounded the 3 humans. "The cave!" Hyejin shouted. "It's too narrow for them to follow." They ran toward her hiding place, but the dragons moved to cut them off. The largest one breathed fire again, creating a wall of flame between the humans and safety. "We can't get through," Jinwoo yelled. Daeho looked around quickly, his engineer's mind working furiously. The cave entrance was 20 feet away, but blocked by fire. The dragons were closing in from 3 sides. The only escape was up the sheer crater wall, which was impossible to climb. Then he noticed something. The fire breathing had created an updraft of superheated air. The thermal currents were strong enough to lift small rocks and debris. "Jinwoo, hey Jin, the fire creates wind currents," he shouted. "If we time it right, we can use the heat to jump higher." "That's crazy," Hyejin replied. "Crazy is the only thing that works against dragons," Daeho said. The largest dragon breathed fire again, aiming directly at them. But instead of running away, Daeho ran toward the flames. At the last second, he leaped upward, using the rising hot air to boost his jump. The thermal lift carried him higher than should have been possible, over the wall of fire and toward the cave entrance. Jinwoo and He-jin followed his example, jumping through the superheated air. All three of them tumbled into the narrow cave as the dragons roared in frustration behind them. Inside the cave, they collapsed against the rock walls, breathing hard. "That was impossible," He-jin said, staring at Daeho. "No one fights dragons like that. No one survives by attacking them." "I'm not fighting them," Daeho replied, checking his tablet for dragon behavioral data. "I'm studying them. Every creature has patterns, weaknesses, predictable responses, even dragons." "You're insane," she said. "Maybe," Daeho admitted, "but I'm also still alive, and now I know something important." "What?" "These dragons aren't as smart as they should be. They've been bred for size and power, but not for intelligence. A wild dragon would never have fallen for that thermal lift trick." He looked at his two companions. "The Catherians have created the perfect weapons, but perfect weapons are also perfectly predictable." Outside the cave, the dragons roared and breathed fire, but they couldn't reach the humans in their narrow hiding place. "How long can we stay here?" Jinwoo asked. "Not long," He-jin replied. "They'll wait for us to come out. They always wait." Daeho smiled grimly. "Then we don't come out. We go deeper." 2 weeks had passed since the humans entered the dragon caves. Commander Veltar stood on the observation platform, staring at his monitoring screens in disbelief. The readings made no sense. "Show me the count again," he ordered his lieutenant. "Sir, we started with 47 dragons in the nest. Current count is 39. 8 dragons are confirmed dead." Veltar's forearms twitched nervously. "That's impossible. No tribute has ever killed a single dragon, let alone 8. The humans are different, sir. They're not hiding like the others did. They're hunting." On the main screen, they watched grainy footage from the crater's surveillance cameras. The images showed Daeho moving through the shadows between rocks, carrying weapons made from dragon bones and sharpened metal. He moved like a predator stalking prey. "Send a message to Admiral Nextos immediately," Veltar commanded. "Tell him we have a situation that requires his personal attention." Deep in the cave system, Daeho carefully cleaned dragon blood from his improvised spear. The weapon was made from a piece of the transport ship's hull, sharpened to a razor edge and attached to a long dragon bone. It had taken him 3 days to kill his first dragon, but each kill after that had been easier. "How do you do it?" He-jin asked, watching him work. "I've been hiding from these things for 8 months. You've been here 2 weeks and you're killing them like they're farm animals." "They are farm animals," Daeho replied, checking the edge of his spear. "That's the problem. The Catherians have bred the intelligence out of them. They're big and strong and dangerous, but they're not smart." Jinwoo limped over, his ankle much better now. "Show her the pattern thing you figured out." Daeho pulled out his tablet, which now contained detailed notes and drawings. "Every dragon follows the same hunting pattern. First, they roar to scare their prey. Then they charge in a straight line. If the prey runs, they breathe fire. If the prey fights back, they use their claws and teeth." "That sounds pretty dangerous," He-jin said. "It is dangerous, but it's also predictable. A wild dragon would change tactics if the first attack failed. These dragons just repeat the same pattern until it works or they die." Daeho showed her his drawings. "Look at this. Every dragon has the same weak spots. Soft scales under the chin, nerve clusters behind the front legs, and thin skin between the toes. You've been studying them like a scientist," she said with amazement. "I am a scientist. I'm also a soldier. But most importantly, I'm a human." Daeho stood up and shouldered his pack. "Humans survived on Earth by being smarter than everything that wanted to eat us. We didn't have claws or armor or poison. We had brains. Where are we going now?" Jinwoo asked. "To the big one, the alpha dragon that rules this crater. I've been watching it for days, learning its habits. It's time to take it down." They moved through the cave system, following passages that Hye-jin had mapped during her months of hiding. The caves were warm and humid, heated by volcanic vents. Strange crystals in the walls gave off a dim blue light. The Alpha lives in the deepest part of the crater, Hye-jin whispered as they crept through a narrow tunnel. It's twice as big as the others. I've seen it breathe fire that melts solid rock. Sizes and everything, Daeho replied. The bigger they are, the slower they move, and the Alpha has been living easy for too long. It's gotten lazy. They emerged from the tunnel onto a ledge overlooking a vast underground chamber. The space was huge, carved out by centuries of volcanic activity. In the center, sleeping on a pile of bones and melted metal, was the Alpha Dragon. The creature was enormous, at least 40 feet tall and over 100 feet long. Its scales were deep black with red edges, and even in sleep its breath came out as visible heat waves. Around its neck hung a collar made of some kind of alien metal, decorated with Catherian symbols. It's wearing a control collar, Daeho observed. That's how they keep it obedient. Can we remove it? Jinwoo asked. We don't need to. Look closer at the collar. See how it's grown into the skin? It's been there for decades. The dragon probably doesn't even remember what it was like to be free. The Alpha Dragon stirred, sensing their presence. Its massive, head lifted and yellow eyes the size of dinner plates fixed on the three humans. It made a sound like distant thunder. It's waking up, Hye-jin whispered urgently. Good, Daeho said, hefting his spear. I wanted to wake for this. The dragon rose to its feet with surprising grace for something so large. It opened its mouth and roared, a sound so loud that rocks fell from the ceiling. The roar echoed through the chamber for nearly 10 seconds. Phase 1, Daeho said calmly. Intimidation roar. Next comes the charge. The Alpha Dragon lowered its head and rushed toward them, its feet shaking the ground with each step. But Daeho was already moving, not away from the dragon but toward it. At the last moment, he dove aside and thrust his spear upward, targeting the soft spot behind the dragon's front leg. The spear found its mark, sliding between scales and into muscle. The dragon screamed and spun around, but Daeho was already gone, rolling away and coming up with a second weapon, a shard of volcanic glass as sharp as a razor. Phase 2, he called out as the dragon breathed fire at the spot where he had been standing. Fire breath when the charge fails. The dragon's flame missed him by inches, but the heat was so intense that his clothes started to smoke. He used the moment when the dragon was breathing fire to attack again, slashing at the tendons in its hind leg. The creature roared in pain and rage, swiping at him with claws the size of swords, but it was already favoring its injured leg, and its movements were becoming slower and more predictable. Jinwoo! Hye-jin! Daeho shouted. The eyes! Distract it from the sides! His companions threw rocks and metal fragments at the dragon's head, making it turn back and forth to track the multiple threats. Each time it turned, Daeho struck at another weak point. The base of the tail, the soft scales under the chin, the joints where the wings connected to the body. The Alpha Dragon was bleeding from a dozen wounds now. Its roars had become whimpers of pain and confusion. This wasn't how fights were supposed to go. Prey was supposed to run or die quickly. It wasn't supposed to hurt the hunter. Daeho circled the wounded beast, staying just out of reach of its increasingly desperate attacks. He was breathing hard, covered in sweat and dragon blood, but his eyes were calm and focused. You know what you are, he said to the dragon, though it couldn't understand his words. You're a slave. You've been a slave for so long that you've forgotten how to be a predator. The dragon tried to breathe fire again, but only a weak puff of flame came out. It was losing blood and strength rapidly. Daeho raised his spear for the final strike. Let me show you what a real predator looks like. He drove the spear deep into the dragon's throat, finding the major artery. The creature's eyes went wide, with shock, then slowly closed as its life drained away. The Alpha Dragon fell with a crash that shook the entire chamber. Jinwoo and Hye-jin stared in amazement. The monster that had ruled the crater for decades was dead, killed by a human with improvised weapons. How did you know it would work? Hye-jin asked. Because I understand what humans are, Daeho replied, pulling his spear from the dragon's neck. We're not the biggest or strongest predators in the galaxy, but we're the smartest. We adapt faster than anything else. We turn every disadvantage into an advantage. Above them, the Catherian observers watched in stunned silence as their ultimate weapon bled out on the chamber floor. "Get Admiral Nextos on the communicator," Commander Veltar ordered with a shaking voice. "Tell him the Alpha Dragon is dead. Tell him the humans are not prey." "What are they, sir?" Veltar looked at the screen showing Deho standing over the dragon's corpse, and for the first time in his military career, he felt genuine fear. "They're the apex predators," he whispered, "and we just gave them a hunting ground." Admiral Nextos received the message while commanding a fleet of 12 battleships near the edge of Catherian space. He was a veteran of 50 wars, a commander who had never lost a battle. But the report from Drakmor Prime made his blood run cold. "Prepare the fleet for immediate departure," he ordered. "Set course for the Dragon World and send a priority message to Emperor Zixmar. Tell him we have a situation that threatens the entire empire." "What should the message say, sir?" "Tell him that humanity is not what we thought it was. Tell him that we may have just awakened something that should have stayed asleep." The fleet turned toward Drakmor Prime, but Admiral Nextos had a feeling they were already too late. The humans had crossed a line that no species had ever crossed before. They had stopped being prey and become predators. The balance of power in the galaxy was about to change forever. Admiral Nextos arrived at Drakmor Prime with 12 battleships and 3,000 soldiers. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring down at the crater that had once held 47 dragons. Now it held 17. "How many humans are down there?" he asked Commander Veltar. "3, sir, 2 males and 1 female. 3 humans have killed 30 dragons." "Yes, sir, but it's mainly 1 human doing the killing. The others help, but he's the one who hunts them." Admiral Nextos studied the surveillance footage. The human called Deho moved through the crater like he owned it. He had made weapons from dragon bones and metal scraps. He had built traps using volcanic vents and falling rocks. He had turned the dragon's own territory against them. "This cannot be allowed to continue," the Admiral said. "If word spreads that humans can kill dragons, it will destroy our authority. Every world in the Empire will rebel." "The news is already spreading, sir," his communications officer reported. "Human colonies on 12 worlds have stopped paying tribute. They're saying that if 1 human can kill dragons, then humans are not as helpless as we thought." Admiral Nextos felt his forearms clench into fists. The Catherian Empire controlled 50 worlds through fear. If that fear was broken, the Empire would collapse within months. "Launch the ground assault," he ordered. "I want those humans dead within the hour. Use whatever force is necessary." "Sir, the remaining dragons are still in the crater. Our soldiers will be fighting both the humans and the dragons." "Then let them fight both. The dragons are already dying anyway. At least this way they can serve one final purpose." Down in the crater, Deho felt the ground shake as Catherian dropships landed around the rim. He looked up to see hundreds of alien soldiers rappelling down the crater walls, their weapons glowing with energy charges. "They're coming for us," he told Jinwu, and he Jin as they gathered in their main cave hideout. "How many?" Jinwu asked, checking his improvised bow and arrows. "At least 500, maybe more. They're taking this seriously now." He-Jin looked terrified. "We can't fight 500 soldiers and 17 dragons at the same time." "We don't have to fight them all," Deho said, studying his tablet. "We just have to make them fight each other." He showed them his plan. The crater was a maze of caves, tunnels, and volcanic vents. The dragons knew the territory, but they were territorial creatures that attacked anything that entered their hunting grounds. The Catherian soldiers were trained to fight in open space battles, not underground guerrilla warfare. "We're going to start a 3-way war," Deho explained. "Dragons versus soldiers versus us. But we're the only ones who understand the real battlefield." The first Catherian squad entered the caves 20 minutes later. They moved in formation, their energy weapons lighting up the dark tunnels. They were looking for 3 hiding humans. Instead, they found something much worse. Deho had spent 2 weeks learning every dragon's territory and behavior. He knew which caves they slept in, which tunnels they used for hunting, and what sounds would wake them up. He had also learned how to make those sounds. The Catherian squad was halfway through the main tunnel when they heard a dragon roar echoing from the walls around them. They raised their weapons, but the sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then the real dragon appeared behind them, awakened and angry at the invasion of its territory. The squad leader screamed orders, but it was too late. The dragon breathed fire, filling the tunnel with superheated death. The soldiers' energy weapons discharged randomly as they died, their beams cutting through rock walls and creating new passages. From his hiding spot, Daeho watched the battle through a crack in the stone. The dragon killed 8 soldiers in the first attack, but the remaining squad members managed to wound it badly with their energy weapons. Both the dragon and the soldiers retreated, bleeding and angry. Phase 1 complete, Daeho whispered to his companions. Now they know they're fighting more than just us. The pattern repeated throughout the crater. Catherian soldiers would enter a tunnel system, encounter dragons that Daeho had deliberately provoked, and both sides would suffer casualties. The dragons were confused and enraged by the invasion of their territory. The soldiers were trained for space battles, not underground warfare against giant monsters. But Daeho wasn't content to just watch. He moved through the tunnel system like a ghost, striking at both sides when they were weakened by fighting each other. A wounded dragon became an easy target for his bone spear. A squad of soldiers damaged by dragon fire became vulnerable to his traps and ambushes. The human is turning them against each other, Admiral Nextos realized as he watched his casualty reports mount. He's using our own weapons as allies. Should we withdraw, sir? Commander Veltar asked. Absolutely not. Double the ground forces. Send in the heavy weapons. I want that crater turned into glass. But doubling the forces only made the problem worse. More soldiers meant more targets for the dragons to attack. More weapons meant more chances for friendly fire incidents in the dark tunnels. And through it all, Daeho continued his deadly work, picking off stragglers and turning every conflict to his advantage. After 6 hours of fighting, Admiral Nextos had lost 300 soldiers, and the humans had killed 5 more dragons. His ground commander was requesting permission to use orbital bombardment to destroy the entire crater. Sir, we're receiving an emergency transmission from long-range sensors, his communications officer announced. Human ships approaching the system. Fleet strength estimated at 20 vessels. Admiral Nextos felt his confidence crack. Human military ships were individually weaker than Catherian vessels, but 20 ships meant a serious rescue attempt. How long until they arrive? 18 hours, sir. On the screen, he watched Daeho emerge from a tunnel, covered in dragon blood and carrying weapons taken from dead Catherian soldiers. The human looked directly up at the observation platform, as if he knew exactly where the cameras were located. Then Daeho smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just realized that bigger prey was coming within reach. All ships prepare for battle, Admiral Nextos ordered, and continue the ground assault. I want those humans dead before their reinforcements arrive. But, in his heart, he was beginning to understand what Commander Veltar had tried to tell him. The humans weren't prey waiting to be rescued. They were hunters who had just been given time to prepare for bigger game. Captain Yujin Ko commanded the human rescue fleet from the bridge of the battleship Seoul. She had 20 ships under her command, not enough to fight the entire Catherian fleet, but hopefully enough to extract 3 humans from a dragon planet. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the surface, Rendar, her communications officer reported. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was calm and steady, despite the sound of explosions in the background. This is Daeho Kim. To the human rescue fleet. We are alive and well. Current enemy casualties are 300 Catherian soldiers and 35 dragons. We are prepared for extraction, but be advised, the situation has changed. Captain Yujin Ko stared at her. Communications panel. Changed how? We're not running from the dragons anymore, Captain. We're hunting them. And now we're hunting Catherians too. Request permission to continue operations until your arrival. Negative, Mr. Kim. Your orders are to survive until extraction. There was a pause. Then Daeho's voice came back, and now he was definitely smiling. Captain, with respect, survival is no longer the mission. The mission is to show the galaxy that humans are not prey. We've already accomplished that goal. Now we're working on the advanced course, which is teaching the Catherians what it feels like to be food. Captain Yujin Ko looked around her bridge at the shocked faces of her crew. They had come to rescue 3 humans from certain death. Instead, they had found 3 humans who had turned certain death into a hunting expedition. All ships, increase speed, she ordered. I have a feeling we're going to want to see this. 18 hours later, the human fleet arrived to find the Catherian battleships in full retreat. Admiral Nextos had lost half his ground forces and all but 2 of his dragons. The humans in the crater were not only alive but actively pursuing his remaining soldiers through the tunnel system. This is Captain Ko to Daeho Kim. Are you ready for extraction? Negative, Captain. We have work to finish here. But thank you for the backup. It's good to know we're not alone. The last dragon died 24 hours later, killed by Jin Wu with a spear that Daeho had taught him to make. Jin planted an improvised explosive in the main Catherian command post, driving the last soldiers from the crater. When the 3 humans finally emerged from the caves, they found a very different galaxy waiting for them. News of their survival had spread to every human colony and beyond. Alien species that had been conquered by the Catherians were openly rebelling. The dragon homeworld, symbol of Catherian power, had been turned into a human victory monument. What happens now? Jin asked as they walked to the extraction shuttle. Daeho looked back at the crater that had been their prison and become their hunting ground. Now the galaxy learns a new lesson about humans. We're not victims. We're not slaves. We're predators who have been pretending to be prey. And the Catherians? 6 months after the Battle of Drakmor Prime, Emperor Zixmar sat in his throne room on the capital world of Kitharos, reading reports that made his 4 hearts race with panic. The Catherian Empire was collapsing. Tell me the count again, he ordered his chief advisor. 18 worlds have declared independence, Your Majesty. 23 others have stopped paying tribute. The rebellion is spreading faster than our fleets can contain it. And the dragons? The remaining dragon worlds are problematic. The creatures refuse to attack human settlements. Some reports suggest they actually flee when humans approach. Emperor Zixmar crushed the data tablet in his upper hands. For 3,000 years, the Catherian Empire had ruled through fear. The dragons were their ultimate weapon, the final threat that kept conquered species in line. Now that weapon was useless. Bring me Admiral Nextos, he commanded. Admiral Nextos entered the throne room with his head bowed in shame. He had commanded fleets for 40 years and never lost a battle until he met the humans of Drakmor Prime. Explain to me again how 3 humans destroyed the foundation of our empire, the Emperor said coldly. Your Majesty, we underestimated their species. Humans are not like other conquered races. They don't accept their place in the natural order. They adapt and evolve faster than we can respond. 1 human killed 35 dragons. Yes, Your Majesty. And he taught others how to do it. Human colonies across the galaxy now have dragon hunting teams. They've turned our weapons into trophies. The Emperor's rage filled the throne room like a physical presence. Then we destroy Earth. We eliminate their homeworld and scatter their colonies. Your Majesty, that would require 3/4 of our remaining fleet. And intelligence reports suggest that humans have been preparing for exactly that response. Their military technology has advanced rapidly since Drakmor Prime. A new voice interrupted the conversation. Perhaps I can offer a different perspective. Both the Emperor and Admiral turned to see a human woman entering the throne room, flanked by Catherian guards. She was tall and confident, wearing simple, diplomatic robes. Her name was Sunho Park, and she was Earth's first ambassador to the Catherian Empire. How dare you enter without permission? The Emperor roared. I requested an audience 6 times through proper channels. Ambassador Park replied calmly. Since you ignored those requests, I decided to demonstrate human initiative by coming directly to you. You could be executed for this insult. You could try, she said with a slight smile. But I think we both know that killing human diplomats would only make your situation worse. Emperor Zixmar studied the human carefully. She showed no fear. despite being surrounded by aliens who could kill her without effort. This was the same confidence he had seen in the surveillance footage from Drakmor Prime. "What do you want?" he asked. "To offer you a choice. You can continue fighting a war. You cannot win. Or you can negotiate a peace that allows both our species to survive. The Catherian Empire does not negotiate with food animals." Ambassador Park's smile grew wider. "Your Majesty, with respect, we stopped being food animals the moment Daeho Kim killed his first dragon. The question now is whether you want to learn to coexist with us, or whether you want to discover what happens when humans decide to actively hunt Catherians." The threat was delivered so politely that it took a moment for its meaning to sink in. When it did, both the Emperor and Admiral felt their blood grow cold. "You're threatening us?" Admiral Nextos demanded. "I'm informing you of a natural progression," Ambassador Park replied. "Humans who can kill dragons can certainly kill Catherians. The only reason we haven't started hunting your species is because we prefer peace to war. But if you force us to choose—" She left the sentence unfinished, but the implication was clear. Emperor Zixmar was quiet for a long time, thinking through the implications. His empire had been built on the simple principle that the strong ruled the weak. But what happened when the supposedly weak turned out to be stronger? "What are your terms?" he asked finally. "Complete independence for all human colonies. Recognition of human sovereignty over 12 star systems. A non-aggression pact between our species, and compensation for the humans who died as dragon tribute. Those terms are unacceptable." "Then counteroffer," Ambassador Park said calmly. "But be aware that every day you delay, more worlds rebel against your rule. Your empire is dying, Your Majesty. The question is whether it dies quickly in war, or slowly through negotiated peace." 3 months later, the Treaty of Terra Nova was signed aboard a neutral space station. The Catherian Empire officially recognized human independence and granted sovereignty over 15 star systems. In exchange, humans agreed not to actively hunt Catherians or encourage further rebellions among other species. Daeho Kim attended the signing ceremony as Earth's military representative. He wore a simple uniform decorated with dragon bone pins, trophies from his time on Drakmor Prime. Reporters from across the galaxy wanted to interview him. "Do you think this peace will last?" asked a journalist from the Centauri News Network. "That depends on the Catherians," Daeho replied. "As long as they remember the lessons from Drakmor Prime, we can coexist. If they forget—" He shrugged. "Well, humans have long memories and we're very good at adapting. What's next for you personally?" Daeho smiled, the same predator's smile that had terrified Admiral Nextos. "I'm starting a school. We're going to teach other humans how to survive in hostile environments. Dragons, hostile aliens, dangerous planets. Whatever the galaxy throws at us, we'll be ready. And if the Catherians break the treaty, then the school becomes a military academy, and we teach humans how to hunt instead of just survive." On New Terra, the colony that had started it all, the colonists erected a monument to their 3 heroes. The statue showed Daeho, Jinwoo, and Hye-jin, standing over a fallen dragon with the inscription, "Here stood humans who refused to be prey." Sora Park, now governor of New Terra, spoke at the dedication ceremony. 6 months ago, we thought we were weak. We thought we needed to accept whatever the galaxy gave us. 3 of our people proved that assumption wrong. They showed us, and the galaxy, that humans are not victims. We're survivors. We're adapters. We're the species that climbs to the top of every food chain we encounter. The crowd cheered, but Sora wasn't finished. More importantly, they showed us that strength isn't about size or weapons or armor. It's about intelligence, adaptability, and the refusal to accept defeat. Those are human traits. Those are the qualities that make us who we are. In the months that followed, human colonies throughout the galaxy began to thrive. Free from Catherian tribute demands, they expanded rapidly, developing new technologies and forming alliances with other species. The galaxy was entering a new age, the age of human influence. But the most significant change was psychological. Other species no longer saw humans as weak prey animals. They saw them as dangerous predators who had chosen to be peaceful. The UI difference was crucial. When trade disputes arose, they were settled through negotiation rather than force. When pirates attacked human ships, they found themselves facing crews trained in dragon hunting techniques. When aggressive species threatened human colonies, they discovered that humans had allies throughout the galaxy, other species who had been inspired by humanity's example. Daeho's school grew into a network of training centers throughout human space. Students came from dozens of species, all wanting to learn the human approach to survival and adaptation. The curriculum included courses on tactical thinking, environmental adaptation, weapon improvisation, and psychological warfare. The most popular course was called Predator Psychology, the art of turning apparent weakness into hidden strength. Jin Woo became the school's primary instructor in improvised weapons and guerrilla tactics. His experiences on Drakmor Prime had made him an expert in using environmental advantages against larger, stronger opponents. Hai Jin specialized in survival psychology and long-term planning. Her 8 months of hiding in the dragon caves had taught her lessons about patience, observation, and choosing the right moment to act. Together, they trained a new generation of humans who understood their place in the galaxy, not as victims or conquerors, but as apex predators who preferred cooperation to conflict. 5 years after Drakmor Prime, Ambassador Sunho Park received a visit from Regent Kiel Ara, the Catherian leader who had taken power after Emperor Zixmar's abdication. "I have a question for you," Kailara said as they walked through the gardens of the diplomatic station. "Do you think your species would have developed the same way if we had never conquered your colonies?" Ambassador Park considered the question carefully. "Probably not. Humans are reactive creatures. We respond to challenges by becoming stronger. If you had left us alone, we might have remained peaceful explorers and traders. So, in a way, we created our own greatest threat." "You created your greatest potential ally," Ambassador Park corrected. "The same traits that make humans dangerous also make us loyal friends and reliable partners. The Catherians taught us that we needed to be strong. Now we're offering to share that strength with you." Kailara was quiet for a long time. "The old empire was built on the idea that only the strongest should rule. But you've shown us a different model.